Hey everyone, Wanderbot here, and today I'm going to be trying out Vertex Dispenser, an indie real-time strategy game by Michael Brough, and music by Arshan Galis. Now, this is kind of an odd beast real-time strategy game, where you play as this orange spaceship on a field of vertices and planes, and you move around using the arrow keys, though you have additional hotkeys for the various abilities listed on the right side of the screen, each one corresponding with a different color, which corresponds with a different color vertice on the map. So the premise of this game is more or less you're just trying to collect as many vertices as possible while preventing the enemy blue team from doing the same. And it's fairly fast paced. You don't get to sit down and wait, because the enemies definitely don't. You spend a lot of your time running around hoping that you can, stay one step ahead of them and, clear out their defenses. Now, if you notice, their faces are popping up and shooting at me. That's because whenever you connect three vertices together, it forms a face, and each face can fire. And generally it doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but if you take too much sustained damage from their shots, you will quickly get shot. And of course, if you also move immediately into their territory, and there are a lot of faces surrounding you, you'll quickly get picked off. So there's a fair amount of element of strategy to this game. You can't just pick vertices up willy-nilly to try and take them away from the enemy, because of course they're doing the same thing. But at the same time, you can't just be slow and deliberate. You have to quickly keep up with everything and die, actually. But so each vertice corresponds with a different color, and each color corresponds with two abilities generally. I only have one for the purple and white, but the top ones on the right side are the most common abilities available to you, and they're the ones that charge up the easiest. So if you notice, there's a lot of blue vertices, red vertices, green, and yellow, but there aren't a whole lot of cyan or purple ones, and there are almost no white ones. The white ones are actually super rare, because the way you get them, you get vertices of different color, is by surrounding them in vertices of all the previous colors on the list. So to get a yellow, you have to surround the vertice with a red, a green, and a blue. In this case, though, this one was originally surrounded as such, but then got closed down. But to get the cyan here, I surrounded the vertice in blue, yellow, red, and green. And to get magenta, you'd have to surround it in all the previous colors, and white, you have to surround it in all of the colors, period. Save for, of course, white. But I shot this vertice that was magenta because there was a magenta when he originally captured it, but it turned green when I captured it because I had only surrounded it with red. So if you have... Oops, I died. So that's kind of how you get vertices of different colors, and it's kind of this interesting setup. But my complaint about it would be, this game is very, very fast-paced, and sitting down and trying to get a white vertice is kind of a pain in the ass. And while the damage all ability is ridiculously powerful and useful, you generally don't have enough time to sit down and actually plan it and lay everything out. You just can't. So you more or less have to keep moving and just hope you're getting some good colors as you go, because there's just not enough time to lay everything out. Of course, this level I've gotten pretty good at because I've replayed it several different times, but especially on later levels, you have no time for anything else. Now, let's see. This game is actually split up into a couple of different modes. So there's Episode 1, and there are 10 levels there. There's Episode 2, where there should be about 10 more levels. Looks like it. And then there's... There's Color Puzzle, which has a bunch of different things where the premise is, how I was just describing, trying to get the white, you have to surround the white vertex in all of the previous colors. That is the premise of the color puzzle, where you're trying to get all of the colors at the same time. But as you go along, the level shapes get weirder, and it makes it harder to get all of the colors laid out. One thing I'm going to point out before I keep going is the cursor only seems to recognize the bottom part of the cursor as opposed to anywhere else. So, also there's practice mode, which I'm not terribly sure. I guess it's just a big open area and you can mess around with whatever. This game is also set up with multiplayer and a battle mode, like I mentioned, where battle mode is you're up against just a bunch of AIs on a field of your choosing. Quick Start is the same thing, just you don't have to mess with the settings, you use a default setup. And multiplayer, you can actually play against other players, but I don't have anybody to play this game with, and I don't know anybody that would really want to play it. Now you can also go into the options and check things out. There's kind of a bare bones amount of visual stuff, so you can turn on or off the anti-aliasing, sound, music. I don't know what overlays mean, but it's probably like the descriptions for stuff as you go by. It does have a colorblind mode, because you do have to worry about the vertexes being the right color, which is smart. It's got windowed, show intro, so on and so forth, and then a bunch of different controls. Now, one control I didn't mention was if you press control itself, it will actually delete the... Now let's go for this level. It'll actually delete the vertex you're facing, like so. And then you can, then fill it back up. But, like I said, this game's kind of an odd beast. It's got some interesting design choices, but I'm not really sure how much I would recommend it to anybody. It's, like I said, odd design choices that truly do set it apart as a very unique game, but at the same time doesn't make it so unique and interesting that I would truly say everybody has to go out and play it immediately. It has a multiplayer section, but unless you actually have friends to play it with, it seems very unnecessary to have said multiplayer section. And, I mean, the visuals aren't anything to write home about. It's very basic. There's pretty much no textures on anything. Everything is just kind of your basic visual model, sans texture, slightly shiny, and that's about it. The audio is also kind of this interesting setup where it's not particularly energetic, which is kind of odd. I would expect a much more a fast-paced music for a fast-paced game, but instead it's this very relaxed, slow music, and it makes it feel like you're kind of playing this game that's, I guess, made up of a bunch of different ideas that just got all hodgepodged into one. So the music would make much more sense for a puzzler game, and that's what I originally thought this game was going to be. But instead, it's more of a... damn. Lost that one. Okay, and died. But it's a top-down real-time strategy game, essentially. Which, again, was not expecting when I went into this game. I was expecting anything but. I've been kind of on a indie puzzler kick as of late, and this game turned out to be something completely different. Which, major points for being different. A lot of indie games have been trying to set themselves apart in a field where, most games are the exact same, or carbon copies, or, somebody saw somebody else's idea and copied it from there on. But at the same time, I'm not quite sure if Michael Brough had been a little bit too eager to come up with something unique, and should have sat down and kind of thought things through. The vector thing, the music, the visuals aren't bad, but it definitely does feel like he could have spent a little bit more time on it or hired an artist. Just because, while successful, the fact that pretty much everything else outside of your kind of like main ship is actually more interesting to look at. Not to mention the fact that your main ship looks like something you'd expect to see in a shoot 'em up, as opposed to, say, a top-down strategy game. The abilities are a neat touch. I actually really appreciate them. I think this game would be really shitty without them. But at the same time, a lot of the abilities feel like kind of neat afterthoughts, like Mighty Vision just makes everything slightly transparent. Roaming Mine is useful, but it's paired up with something even more useful, so you just never use it. Kind of same thing with, I don't know, Protection. Or the Repair Bot, which heals you, but since there's no penalty for dying, what do you care? But at the same time, I do have to give them props for coming up with something new and unique. You don't get a whole lot of games that truly are surprising when you come across them. It's like, oh, this is how it is, as opposed to just suddenly, oh, it's another puzzler game. My one other complaint is some of the levels feel kind of odd. So this one I'm supposed to create 5 robots, but it's the enemy, there are 2 blue robots moving around to kind of counter you at the same time, and more or less making it impossible for you to get a whole lot of purple spaces out. But the enemies will also blow up your robots, so you pretty much spend your entire time running around trying to maintain your things while blowing up their stuff. And at least they behave stupid in this one. But there's a previous level I was playing where the enemy was floating on this little planetoid, and I couldn't hit him at all with any of my abilities. I had to create these laser towers to shoot him for me, which not a bad thing, but it definitely did feel very limited with how I was going. So pretty much this has been Vertex Dispenser. There's a little bit in episode 2 that I didn't show, but the only real difference is the levels are weirdly laid out and the abilities are completely different. But, I mean, it's an interesting take on strategy games. I will grant it that. The music is nice, if mismatched. The visuals work for what it's trying to do, but feel empty. And honestly, I wouldn't recommend this to anybody unless you're really into, you know, unique indie games or really unique real-time strategy games. Because I definitely don't think I'm going to be playing this any more than I have already. It feels like something I'm probably going to just put away, because there's no real variety to it apart from just replay the old levels over again. And since once you've unlocked all the abilities, that's pretty much it. You just spend a lot of your time running around being like, I'll just, I guess, do this thing. So, would I recommend this to buy? Probably not. I probably would not have bought it if it weren't for the whatever bundle I got it in. It was probably an indie royale game, all things considered. But, you know, definitely props for coming up with a really unique concept, which truly is something to appreciate. Let's see. I hope you guys had a good time watching me kind of ramble my way through this game, because it definitely does feel like a rambling type of game. And if you like what I'm doing, you know, hit the like button below, leave a comment. If I did something stupid, yell at me for it. You know the drill. And I hope to see you guys next time. See you then.